Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Inside the OC podcast. My name is Matt Cannizzaro, and we're looking forward to another terrific show today. We've got our guest coming to us from Michigan. He's one of the busiest guys in bowling, and we're looking forward to talking to him for the next hour or so, getting the lowdown and how things are going out his way. First, let me bring in our co-host for today, my PR assistant manager, Daniel Farish. Welcome.
Whoa, I got a promotion all of a sudden. That's
you got
awesome.
Something. You got a haircut. You got a promotion. What a week so far.
This has been a great week, man. I'll tell you what.
And you got to bowl, so that's even better, right? The highlight so far?
It's a secret.
Oh, secret bowling.
No, I did. One of my local buddies, let me in for a couple games just to see what it felt like, and it didn't feel great. I woke up sore this morning, so I probably shouldn't have done that. But hey, I was itching to get back out on the lanes.
Well, now you guys are getting ready. You got a big event coming up on Monday. I know we've talked about that a little bit so far this week, but it's kind of a basketball season, March Madness type situation. As soon as the clock strikes midnight, it's time to hit the lanes. Yeah,
Monday, June 1st is when bowling centers open in Kentucky, but Monday at 12:01 a.m., Jason Utchwald, the proprietor of Executive Strike and Spare, where the PWBA was at last year, where Dasha shot 300 and where the PBA used to go for a very long time, he's opening up at 12:01 a.m. Monday morning for a little 4-game sweeper, cut to the top 8, single elimination bracket match play type deal. So it's going to be fun.
All right. Well, our guest today, among the other things that he does to stay busy in our industry, being a proprietor is one of them. So we'll get some details on life as a proprietor in Michigan. And here he is, Bo Goergen, 2-time USBC Open Championships titleist. Bo, welcome.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
All right, well, we were glad to get some of your insight today, and we're not going to waste any time. We've got a ton to talk about, and I think we could do probably an hour on each topic before we even get to the 2009 Open Championships, where you shined, shooting a record series. All that and more coming up later in the show. First, let's just catch up a little bit. Again, you're a busy guy. You're a proprietor of Northern Lanes. That's number one, and also active in the local association community out there, getting things with all the bowlers situated. You're on the USBC board of directors, and of course, a superstar on the lanes. First, tell us, what are things like for you in Michigan? We know it's been kind of an interesting and scary and emotional time for you guys there outside of bowling entirely. Just how about a quick update on life in the Sanford, Michigan area?
Yeah, as the country heard, we got 2 dams that broke in our area, and 11,000 people got evacuated. We were worried about our bowling center being affected, but fortunately we were saved. Where I live, we were also out of danger from the floods. My son wasn't so lucky. He lives with his mother, and I was able to come get him. So he stayed with me for the next 3 days while this was going on. So, but seeing it firsthand, it's incredibly devastating and heartbreaking at the same time of all the families and businesses that lost everything. It happened so quickly. If you can imagine, 21 trillion gallons of water left Lake Wixom in 60 minutes. So the force that was pummeling on those dams, they couldn't handle it. So all that started with 8 inches of rain in 36 hours in those communities. And so the rivers and the lakes and the dams just couldn't handle it.
So now already just a frustrating and wacky time in America, and you guys, of course, in the bowling business, not much going on there. As far as that and what you're up to pre-flood, how much can you guys take? You're obviously enduring a lot, and just tell us about the business side of things and what this COVID-19 situation has been like for you in that regard.
Sure. Well, again, I'm the co-owner of Northern Lanes, but I let my brother run that as I've taken on another role as the executive director for the Bowling Proprietors Association of Michigan. So my role since all of this has gone on is to take care of my 165 member centers in providing resources, education, marketing, whatever we can do to help keep these guys afloat. So getting all the information on the governmental loan opportunities for small businesses, and so forth. But a lot of it is just being an ear to the proprietors. So far today, I've had 4 proprietors call me to just discuss what they're going through, and some of it's been a little rough, but we're a strong bunch. I think most proprietors in any small business have more of an A personality, so they'll, even in these trying times, most of them will fight through it and get through this, as I think that we will in our bowling industry.
Just as you've united the proprietor association at the same time, the irony maybe in it, the fact that we are socially distancing ourselves, yet in light of recent events in your area, your community actually came together and you were able to get out and help the community. We have some photos here that you're able to share, but in a time of being apart, you guys came together to help everybody around. Talk about some of what we're seeing and what it was like getting out there and just getting in there and helping out.
Sure. Our bowling center is located in Sanford, Michigan. We're just a few hundred feet away from the Midland city limits, so we're kind of on the outskirts of Sanford, and most of these pictures that you're seeing now are in downtown Sanford. It's a small community. It has about 25, 30 businesses located on Main Street that was really close to the Sanford Dam. So this semi here and these tents are on our property. We provided availability for people to drop off supplies, clothing, bedding, kitchenware. So these volunteers that have come out to help out with all the donations have been wonderful. So this is a little bit of what we're trying to do to help with our community. My girlfriend and I have gone out ourselves to help friends and customers with their cleanup process at their homes and their businesses. So we've been busy doing that. After a few days of that, we had to take a little bit of a break to regroup. It's been tough emotionally for us as well to see all the damage. But I can't tell you how much the support has been for the community. People have come from all over the state and even out of state to provide help with the cleanup process. So it's been amazing in that regard.
Of course, you know, in a smaller community, these are your customers and you are their customer. And these are faces of people you know, and it's hard to even talk about kind of what's happening, and so unexpectedly even.
Absolutely. We're not sure how many of our immediate customers were really directly affected. But I would think that a number of around 50% would be pretty close. So we'll see when things get settled down. We have plans in the makings for fundraisers, things like that, to help with the bowling community within our center. And I would have to tell you that I can't appreciate enough the bowling community around the country that have reached out for support with the calls, the texts, the emails, particularly our bowling ball manufacturers. They've stepped up to the plate for donations of equipment for any of our customers that have been affected directly. So can't be more proud to be a part of the bowling industry, even with the different hats that I do wear. It's been amazing for everybody that's reached out. Can't think of it.
Definitely a good point about the bowling community as well, always coming together, really for anyone and any time. And just like now with all these podcasts and all this great coverage and things, just staying active and keeping the word out as we get ready to bowl and get back to real life. But certainly maybe a back of the mind thought right now for the folks in your area. But the good news is Northern Lanes spared any trouble at this point. So as far as the bowling center and the plans there, what has it been like over the last few months, kind of seeing the lights out, but still yet an opportunity to maybe make some changes and upgrades and updates, clean up, and get ready for things to get back to normal?
Yeah, it's been eerie walking into the bowling center, dark and no power and all that stuff. So the staff has done a wonderful job getting it ready for when we are able to open. Looking forward to that day. I hope it's sooner than later. We're in one of those states that seems to be going to be one of the last ones to open up, unfortunately. But so let's hope things move in the right direction, and all of our proprietors can get back to doing what they love to do and providing a wonderful sport and recreation to our customer base.
And as we mentioned, along with serving the sport in the many ways that you do, you're a superstar and a champion. We see the two Eagles there on the mantle behind you, 2009 regular singles and 2010 team all events. And we'll go through those in detail a little bit later in the show. But with a bowling center in the family and now an opportunity potentially to bowl coming up, you said you might have to leave the state, but it's really not that far. How have you been able to stay sharp and ready during this crazy time? And how much are you looking forward to getting back on the lanes very, very soon?
I'm looking forward to it. And I know a guy that may have a key to the facility. So I've snuck my son in a couple of times. We've got some practice in, and it feels great to get out there and bowl. Again, a little eerie, just a couple lanes on. I do turn the music on to try to create a little bit of atmosphere. So I've been trying to stay in shape. So at least once a week, I've been getting about 6 to 8 games in. Going to practice tomorrow. Got a buddy of mine that's going to come up and get some games in to see if we're ready to bowl Sunday night in Toledo. We have 112 bowlers signed up for 2 shifts of just a sweeper. So you can tell that the competitive bowler is ready to get out on the lanes. So looking forward to it.
And now your son Isaac is an up and comer as well. He's had a pretty good year, it looks like, just by some of the posts that you've made on social media. And no doubt following in Dad's footsteps there. But has he given you the competition just yet? And we have another potential Eagle winner?
Well, his physical game is definitely better than his father. He's got a lot to learn on the mental game. So we do keep battling, and he hasn't quite crossed that hurdle yet. But he'll get there soon. His game is phenomenal, and he's learning. He's learning the mental game. And again, he's still young. But he had a tremendous year this year. Won the Division I state championship as a junior. Third year in a row he made the state finals. Second year in a row he made first team all state. So couldn't be any more prouder, obviously, with all the posts you see on Facebook. But it's been a great relationship that we have on the lanes. And it's an interesting story that I like to tell about him growing up with bowling being his main interest, and he would come to some of these PBA 50 events with me, and he got to meet obviously a bunch of Hall of Famers, and with Parker's boys, Brandon and Justin, he kind of hung out with them, so they would go practice, and I think that's where he got the bug. And it's kind of interesting, I really haven't done a tremendous amount of coaching with him. He seemed to have picked it up by watching all of us bowl. And interestingly enough, I take him down to Turbo Training Center. Jordan Vanover, first thing out of his mouth is, man, he looks just like Parker Bowen going to the line. So that's what you can see with a little bit more pop, awesome. More rev rate. And so he's, again, his physical game's really strong. He's come a long way with the mental game. Extremely disappointed about junior gold this summer, but we've got plans of sending him to Vegas in January for Team USA trials. So kind of a makeup tournament, if you will.
Okay, well, we certainly look forward to seeing him there and you there as well if you're there to look on. I do want to clear something up from yesterday that's non-bowling related, but certainly very confusing. When we did our test for the live stream, you were in your son's room, and there's a big Green Bay Packers logo on the wall, but you were there wearing a Pittsburgh Steelers shirt, I believe, coming to us from Michigan. So all very confusing. How's all that work out?
Well, I'm originally from Iowa, born and raised in Sioux City, Iowa. No sports teams. Closest teams growing up was the Minnesota Vikings, Kansas City Chiefs. Kind of fans more towards the Chiefs than I was the Vikings. But back in 2012, I became a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Watched the divisional playoff game between the Steelers and the Raiders. This was the Immaculate Reception game. And prior to that, I was watching football, really did not like the Raiders. They played dirty. And if I remember right, they knocked out Darryl Stingley, put him in a wheelchair just shortly before that. And there were some cheap shots going on in that Pittsburgh game. And then as I'm watching the Steelers, I realized, hey, they got the same uniform colors as the Iowa Hawkeyes, obviously being from Iowa. So I attached to them and been a Steeler fan my whole life. My son, growing up, he loved the Packers. And I was fortunate enough to take him to Green Bay with me for the Senior Masters. I think it was 2015, 2016, one of those years. And we took a nice long road trip, did the Lambeau Field tour. So it was a wonderful experience. And I'm a Packer fan now, too.
Fair enough, and some quality time with your son as well. Fairs.
That's painful to hear. Bo, I'm similar to you. I've born and raised, and still live in Louisville, Kentucky. No major sports teams here. The closest ones, were the Titans or the Colts or the Bengals. But growing up, my best friend was a Vikings fan, and that was right during the Dante Culpepper, Robert Smith, Chris Carter, Randy Moss era. So I became a Vikings fan at 11 or 12. My dad, born and raised Packer fan. So our household. Could be a little contentious at times.
But I don't dislike the Vikings in any way, shape, or form. What drew me to the Packers was spending a week in Green Bay during that tournament, and the way that we were treated as just consumers. Everywhere I went, to restaurants, to hotels, to the Walmart, everybody laid out the red carpet. It was a wonderful experience. A town of about 60, 70,000 people, and the friendliest town I've ever been in. So. And that's who owns the team.
Is the town.
So that's what drew me to as well. So great history, great community, great football program and team. So the only teams I really dislike, again, are the Raiders and now the Baltimore Ravens. Oh, there you go. Cheesehead. Love it. Love it.
That would be my father.
There it is. Another great father-son relationship, and an opportunity for Daniel to spend some quality time with the family during this. So certainly times are crazy, but an upside nonetheless.
Yeah, an upside. Let's move on, Matt.
All right. Well, that's
rinse myself off after that. That was gross.
Regardless of what happens on Sunday afternoons and Monday nights, bowling has united all of us, of course. And now we're gonna talk about the sport we love and talk about Bo Goergen and his success. And again, Bo, if you weren't sure already, Daniel's our numbers guy. He's got the stats. We've got your career record here printed out, ready to go.
Those early rough, weren't they, Daniel?
Inexperienced is the words that I would use. I mean, you were young. I'll certainly give you that. The first 4 years you weren't over 1,700, a couple of 15s and 14s in there. But how old were you back then? I mean, you were early 20s,
18
teens.
Years old.
Teens
in Tampa, Florida, in 1979. So fresh out of high school. And we drove down to Tampa, 3 of us in a van. Awesome. But walking into that convention center, I was bought and sold. I was a lifer. That was the greatest experience that we as bowlers can ever have, is that our national tournament and what they do to make you feel welcome in such a enormous environment. I made a commitment that I'm going to keep bowling every year. And so far, so good.
I want to stick with 1979 real quick. You walk in, and if you've never been in an atmosphere like that before, it's awe-inspiring. It's amazing. Your jaw hits the floor, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh man, I got a bowl in here. How much nervousness and anxiousness were you feeling that first year?
Obviously, I can't remember that far back since it was so long, but there was obviously some nerves. But because at that time I still wasn't real confident in my bowling game. I've had some successes as a youth bowler, but very locally, nothing real regionally. And then shortly before that tournament, I did go to my first men's tournament down in Lincoln, Nebraska, about 3.5 hours away from where I grew up. And it was a monthly scratch organization, kind of like the Greater Iowa Bowling Association. This one was the Missouri Valley Bowling Association, ran by Bobby Dorn. And 6-game qualifier, top 12 make the finals, head-to-head match play, 30 bonus pins. And my very first 3 games out of the box, I go 790 something in with a 300 game 3. Interestingly, I hadn't had a 300 yet, and my brother was on my pair, and I remember getting up after 9 frames, and I picked up my ball, and I felt hands on my shoulders, and I turned around. I was like, "What are you doing?" I slammed my ball down on the rack, and he says, "Shut up and listen to me. I just want you to pretend like we're back home at our center back in Sioux City at the Park Bowl. We're on lanes 11 and 12, and you and I are bowling for a soda pop." And when he did that, I got into this mind frame of just, I was practicing back home, and I got up and pured 3 shots in a row for my very first 300. And I think it was the next game or the game after that, the owner of the center, which, by the way, Sun Valley Lanes in Lincoln, Nebraska. I have the very first 300 game ever bowled there in 1978.
How about that?
And he came out and gave me a check for $300. I make the finals, and I end up winning the tournament. One of the best matches was against Bill Straub. We both have the front 7. I get up on the 8th frame, and I left the 1, 2, 4, 10. I get 3 back. He strikes in the 8th. I strike in the 9th. He gets up in the 9th, and he leaves the 1, 2, 4, 10 with the 8 pin. He gets 4 back. We both strike out. I win 264 to 262. I remember that game. And,
I like those 264s, huh?
Yeah, I do. So I end up making $1,800 for the day, freshly out of high school. Probably, well, no, we won't get negative here. I was just going to say probably the worst thing that ever happened, because now I wanted to be a professional bowler instead of an accountant that made a lot more money over my career.
Well, now your description of the Open Championships in 1979, we always ask, what is it that brings you back after the first one? And that was almost as if we scripted it. That was perfect. But at the same time, I kind of almost wish that you were able to start a year earlier in St. Louis, a little closer to home in 1978, because that was the last year, of course, of the old scoreboards and the boardmen. And I know you're busy with prom and graduation and all that good the high school stuff, but 1979 was the first year of our automatic scoring, and what an awesome way to celebrate that, driving to Florida, no less. Just the location, the venue. We know why you came back, but what was it that attracted you to the event the first time and convinced 3 guys to get in a van and drive all the way down?
I got invited by the guys in my first adult league. So I was like, why not? I've got nothing else going on. It's summertime, basically. School's out. I played baseball in college, so we hadn't even started that yet. So it's like, why not do that? And I had no idea what kind of environment I was walking into. I mean, hey, we're bowling in a convention center. This is going to be kind of cool. But that's just the way that they had the whole setup with the paddock, how they rolled you out during the team event, the announcements. And then I just started paying attention to the history of what happened with that tournament. My father had been going for many, many years. My older brother, a good bowler in his own right, was going. So I've been hearing the stories. And I believe I may have went as a smaller child when it was a little bit closer, but there was a couple other groups of bowling that my father and my brother would go to that I went with that I don't remember if it was the national championship or not.
Well, now you've been to 41 consecutive. We're looking for 42 here coming up in the fall. You bowled the entire era of those flip dot scoreboards from 1979 until 2008, and you had a couple good years, but nothing really stood out score wise. Hopefully, some great memories along the way, just like traveling in the van, and that's where many of the memories do come. And then we get to 2009, and this is what got you in the record books and has made you famous at the Open Championships. But again, it was the beginning of a new era at the OC. One more time, it was the introduction of our new scoreboards, the Daktronics, the world's largest mobile scoreboard, trillions of colors, fantastic capabilities. And man, did that scoreboard look awesome when you were stringing strikes in the singles event. But I guess first, talk about the first 30 years. And again, a couple decent years and some good scores, but nothing news release worthy pretty much. But talk about some of the memories and the things that you learned along the way.
Sure. I think the first 10, 15 years, it was heading to nationals with your Tuesday night team. And so we did that for quite a while, the camaraderie, let's get out and bowl. I remember one time we did a trip where we took a mobile motorhome of about 6 of us. We left Sioux City, Iowa, and drove to Atlantic, Iowa, between Omaha and Des Moines. And one of the proprietors down there had a motorhome, so we hooked up there, and we drove straight to Baltimore to bowl the Baltimore one. So I was still young. And from there, we were going to the Hoinky. And then from there, we went to Des Moines to bowl the state tournament. So we had a 10-day scheduled trip to get a lot of bowling in. And that trip has a lot of stories, mind you. But those stories were building over the years. And it wasn't until about 2005 when we started I had moved over to the Chicagoland area, and I was running a few centers for another family during that time. And I got to meet Steve Jaros and John Force, whose pro shop was next to the center that I was running, and got picked up by some bowlers out there and bowled a few years, and then started to kind of develop our own team. And as I was seeing the guys that were winning were kind of building teams, if you will. So I thought, well, my Tuesday night league back in Sioux City is gone. So here I'm being gathered in by some of the better bowlers in the Chicagoland area. So we started there, and then morphed into, I had moved to Michigan, and we've continued to morph into different teams. But it was 2005, Baton Rouge. John Forst was his first year back after, I believe, doing the lanes for the ABC tournament. Working for Kegel, and he chose not to bowl while he was working for Kegel. But he brought it, the first time I heard this, let's work together and break the pattern down. And so that was the first year that we actually put a game plan together, got all 10 guys on the pair of lanes to work together during the 10 minutes of practice. And admittingly, the way that John threw, if you remember, he rarely played right of 15, and he wanted us to all to break down like 5, 6, 7, if you will. Way out of his comfort zone. So in order to have success, we felt we came up with a game plan that all 10 members would buy into on that pair of lanes, where it didn't matter how much money you wanted to invest in brackets, but there was a breakdown, that formula that we used, where you get half your money back initially, and the other half goes in the team kitty to be distributed amongst all 10 guys, so that we could get everybody to buy into this plan. As we were watching other teams, great teams, not having that much success, and we figured the reason was because at some point somebody's going to look in their pocketbook and say, hey, I've got $1,000. I don't like this plan. It doesn't fit me. And off they go. And then their scores kind of go this way. And that particular tournament, it happened to John Forst himself. He bowled terrible. But he still made $400 or $500 based on the breakdown, because he still tried his best to do what we asked him to do, and that was to break the lanes down. So that was our initial introduction into the lane play, if you will. And as you'll see with the scores, starting in 2007, our team shot 3180 or higher for the next 6 years, and we've finished no worse than 25th as a team. So that working together to get all 10 guys to buy in was the secret of how to attack the team pair.
All right, now we'll talk about some of your teams and that coming up here. But Ferris, if you're taking notes, I think if you really want some solid Bowl TV content, we need to get in on one of these cross country motorhome team building road trips and just get some footage there, and whatever's perhaps appropriate or not. Yeah. Maybe that'll go on our Bowl TV after dark. But man, that must have been some kind of fun, no matter how the bowling went, and if it went well, certainly even better.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. There's some stories. All of us have been on bowling trips, and the older we get, the more trips we go on. And there are some stories from the college bowling years that I can't share. Thank goodness they were before the advent of social media. And there's been trips taken by my father and people of his generation back in the 70s, 80s, 90s that things can't be told unless, like you said, it's Bowl TV after dark and just a bunch of people having fun.
Absolutely, and certainly in the years that followed, the 2007 or so, Bo and his teammates had a lot of fun. Before we do that, Daniel, let's take a look at our chat room and see. We've got a lot of folks checking in, some familiar names, and looking forward to some questions along the way as well. One gentleman, Joe Engelkiss, very busy in the Iowa area, and Greg Engelkiss with the 300 at the Open Championships, and Joe, hardworking tournament official, and again. We do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you're just joining us, we're getting ready to talk about Bo Goergen and his success at the Open Championships. But Daniel, anything stand out so far?
Just a couple of questions. A lot of well wishes and great to see you guys. As you mentioned, Joe. Hey Matt and Bo, thanks for doing this. Vic Karbowski, good morning, everyone. Question from Jacob Johnson. What was Bo's favorite win? Now, I don't know if that's talking about just between the 09 and the 010 Eagles, or if it's your entire career. All encompassed. So I'll let you decide how you want to answer that question.
I got to put the singles event was obviously, I think it still is my highest accomplishment in regards to the level that it was done at. I made a commitment to try to win an Eagle back in 1980, whatever. And it took a while to get there, obviously, but finally got there, and what an experience. And once that was going on and the accolades and the interviews and how it just broke out, I couldn't wait to share this with my team. And so my whole goal was, God, if you guys could just experience, I want the team to win something. And we were so fortunate the very next year to do that. And I couldn't be more happier with that event as well. I think that first tournament at age 17 and men's tournament was a highlight as well. There's a bunch that are out there, but at the level that we're talking about, the 2009 singles, 2010 team all events are my proudest moments. Yes.
Now, along with the off-lane stuff, the trips and the fun, you certainly surround yourself with some talented players as well, and you're also a hardworking team captain. So you get to do all the dirty work behind the scenes before you get out there and still have to focus on bowling. So we appreciate all that you do there. But heading into 2009, I saw Daniel had just cut off the 2009 event strategically when showing your record up there. But 2009, we're in Cashman Center in Las Vegas. It was the longest event in tournament history at 154 days, 17,200 teams, nearly a record for participation as well. And some of our leading scores were pretty high. We talked to Brendan Padilla and Stephen Padilla earlier this week about their doubles record. We talked to Ron Vokes recently about his all events performance. And then here comes Bo Goergen, again, surrounded by terrific players. And that's the number one thing. You mentioned certainly the chemistry and the team play and working together and communicating. And on that team, just to name a couple of the standouts, was for starters, John Nolan, who had just won the USBC Masters in that venue in Las Vegas a few months before, and Dan McClellan, the superstar from Saginaw Valley State, not far from you guys, of course, in Michigan. He's from Team Canada as well. So when you get that caliber of players around you, certainly that helps elevate your own desire and your own performance as well. Let's talk about that. We'll get into that team event first because it went well collectively as a group. 628, a solid effort individually. But back then, same oil pattern for team doubles and singles. So always an opportunity to see it for 3 games in the team event, get some momentum. And now for teams of your caliber, of course, that also means a head start for team all events, which is what happened in 2010 as well. But the team event kind of tested out, and then an opportunity to make some changes, adjustments, maybe visit the booth for some new equipment as well. But tell us about that team event and the momentum and the excitement of making a run there, and then we'll talk about what happened that night and the next morning.
Well, I'm going to have to preface this with what happened 10 days prior to the Vegas trip. We had the Resident Pro Championships at Thunderbolt Lanes in Allen Park that I participated in. So I had practice quite a bit up because here was the Resident Pro Championships, followed immediately by the 2009 PBA Tour Trials at Thunderbolt. And then the day after Tour Trials was over, I flew immediately to Las Vegas for the Open Championships. And I had a pretty good RPC where I qualified third, made it to the round of 16. It was my match in the round of 32 where something popped in my ankle on my very final shot against Joe Bailey. And I thought I blew an Achilles heel. And it was so painful. And we had to walk from the high end at Thunderbolt all the way down to the arena for the final 16. They were going to do the rest of it in the arena. And I couldn't even walk. And I was like, what am I going to do? I got to bowl Joe Ciccone now in a round of 16, best of 3. I can't even walk the first game. I lose the first game. Somehow in the second game, I win 2-0 to 180. And the third game, he ends up winning, which he then ends up winning the whole tournament. But I'm like, what am I going to do? I got tour trials starting tomorrow, the practice session. So I'm just trying to figure out what's going to happen. So I sat in the stands during the practice session. I didn't throw a single ball as all 5 patterns were laid out there. I just took notes, wrapped my ankle up, and then we started on the cheetah pattern on day 1. I had managed to finish 88th out of 120 bowlers after day 1, but somehow started feeling a little bit better. Might have had a Vicodin or 2 for the next few days. But I climbed the ladder all the way to 9th. They took 8 players for the exemptions that year, and I missed by 1 spot. But then I flew out to Vegas, and so this was our first time doing the team practice session with Mike Jasnow. I remember going over there, so we got all 10 guys to buy into what Mike was telling us. And during that session, I felt like I re-injured my ankle a little bit. But I do remember him going through our bags, in particular Dan McClellan and I, who were doubles partners that year. And he saw that we both had a pin down high road. And he says, man, that's going to be a pretty good ball for team event, in my opinion. In fact, for doubles and singles, it might behoove you guys to get a pin up high road if you have one. And we're like, well, we don't. So on our way to the team event, we stopped at the Storm booth and we both drilled up a pin up one that we didn't even pick up till the next morning on our way to the double squad. So that's what we did, and we asked the guys in the booth there what we should do with the cover stock. It was a 4,000 pad for maybe 5 seconds on both sides, and that was it. That's all we did. So during the team event, excuse me, you'll notice I think I had 160 something game 1. I was a little ginger on that foot, but I came back with a couple of 230s to get to that 628. And then the next day, Dan and I started with, oh, by the way, in the team event, so I had 628, but we ended up with 3272 that ended up 11th. We crushed them in brackets. People asked me, well, how much money did you make in the singles? And I was like, well, not as much as you think, because when they saw us walking in the next day, there wasn't a lot of action in doubles and singles, because we took, I think, 17-5 out of team event for brackets, our 2 teams. So,
and now you're coming in at that point. You're 49 years old, right? Just on the verge of the senior tour, and really just getting going in your career. You're starting to heat up. Scores are starting to look good, and you're feeling good, bowling well, minus the injury, of course, and these great players around you. And there's always such a great story off the lane. It's not just what happens. And, Brendan Steven had it as well, Ron Vokes. So we appreciate the insight there. And then walking in for doubles and singles, again, same pattern, but a ball that you just picked up minutes before going to the squad room. So, you obviously had an idea just from watching and from bowling the night before, kind of what you were going to do. But that says, let's improve on 628. But, obviously you can't walk in the door ever thinking I'm going to shoot 862 today. But talk about hitting the lanes for doubles and singles. Steven and Brenda hadn't bowled yet, but that 857 in singles already was on the leaderboard. So what do you guys have going on mentally walking on the lanes?
Well, we were watching the pairs that we were going to bowl on, and very similar to Brenda's story that I was listening to. We had some gals throwing plastic. We had their husbands throwing 500 grit, super monstrous bowling balls. And we're like, this is going to be a train wreck by the time we get there in our mind. So we really mentally were just like, well, it is what it is. But the bell rang, and so for doubles, Dan and I both started with our pin down high roads, and we shot 430 for game one. And it was just like a light switch went off. He went to his bag, and I was like, well, I'll go to my bag. We didn't even throw it in practice. And we ended up shooting 500, 480. Their next two, we shot 1420 some. I think we finished 20th. And for some reason, did we still switch pairs then?
Yes, back in 09, again, as you mentioned, the pairs weren't fresh still.
Right.
So you're following who you follow, and then you do flip pairs for doubles and singles.
And I think it was the singles pair that I was more concerned about, the plastic and the grind balls there. But I threw my first shot where I finished, and we finished strong, obviously. And the ball read incredible. I went to the next lane. The ball read incredible. It was like, let's just try to repeat. And so the mindset for each shot was, and mind you, I just got done bowling the RPC, the tour trials. My physical game was sharp as long as my ankle didn't give me any trouble. My mental game was sharp as well, to where I got into such a bubble. And during that singles event, I really feel like I was having an out-of-body experience watching myself bowl. That's kind of the bubble that I got into. And my mindset was, get the ball started, make sure your first step is relatively short, and post each shot. I can visually see my target, but I wasn't thinking about, I have to hit my target. How do I get from point A to point B? And I was able to repeat that for 3 games like I've never repeated before in my mind, as the results kind of showed that.
Now, when the collegiate player of the year walks in the door with the Masters champion, and anybody who's with that group, of course, there's going to be a lot of eyes on them. And after the team event, we were on Team All Events Watch doing our thing. Nobody could have expected what was about to happen. I mean, you guys are a fun bunch anyway, so it's nice to go and say hello and talk. And you mentioned yesterday in our pre-interview that while you're bowling, you're the talker. You like to keep it light, keep it loose, have a conversation. Maybe not think as much in between shots. Just go out there and do what you know you can do. And it's similar. And we're out there watching. We don't necessarily talk to the bowlers, and unless they talk to us first. And if there's a string of strikes, we're right there, 7 in a row. They're calling us, 8 or 9. We're walking out, and we're there to get video of a run at perfection. And you gave us that first game of singles. I mean, obviously you went into singles pretty confident after a nice doubles performance. You liked your ball reaction right away. And then you start getting closer. And again, to that point, you had some good numbers at the OC, but nothing video worthy to that point, or news release worthy, really. And there you are, 7 in a row. And then for us, we can see it in the office. Things are changing colors and flashing. And walk us through that first run at 300, and without even obviously knowing what was coming the rest of the day.
Yeah, obviously, I think I've had a front 7 a few times prior to that at the OC. Excuse me. So there were probably a little bit of nerves, but I think the medicine that I was on was relaxing me a little bit, because I was worried about my foot and the pain. And so with that being with that being said, I think I was a little bit more relaxed than the average guy going for his first 300 game at the Open Championships. The confidence was there. We had great communication going on amongst the 4 of us on that pair of lanes. Like you said, we had some superstars there. The 4th member on the pair, Jeff Ostring, is a Metro Detroit Bowling Hall of Famer himself, with a great bowling resume himself. And we were doing a nice job of communicating those little subtle moves during that first game. And then I think I threw a pretty good shot on ball number 12. 3 pins went over to the 7th pin. It just wiggled and stood up. So on to game 2. It was like, ball reaction looks good. Let's, again, You have one job, and that's to execute, and the rest is out of your hands once the ball leaves your hands. So I was very fortunate to see what was going on.
Well, I guess my initial question here too is that when you start singles, knowing that 857 is the number, is there more pressure or less pressure knowing that you really can't mess up at all the entire way? So you don't want to go out and bowl well, of course, but to fathom shooting 858 or better, I would imagine you're kind of relaxed at that point, just going out to have fun and do your best.
There was no thought of shooting 857. None. It was unreachable. That was my thought process. It was unreachable. Can I squeeze into the top 10 if I have a good couple more games? That was my thought process. If that Avian came up. So I'm the kind of guy, and I teach this with the kids over the years, that I tell this story, and I can honestly say that I never once looked up at the scoreboard. And people say, how is that possible? Well, what am I looking up at the scoreboard for? I know I hadn't missed yet. I mean, do I want to look up there to make sure they have the X in the right spot? I think they know how to do that. So my whole mental preparedness in what I did each and every shot was in the approach. I can't control what happens after that. The scoreboard is going to do what it does. As soon as I got done, if you'll notice, I went back to the railing. We had a bunch of friends over there keeping me loose, telling lots of jokes, having great conversation. And so I just stayed in my zone. The only time I even thought about what possibility I had was the score was obviously after 2 games. I had 598 and was like, wow, that's a lot. And it wasn't until the second frame of game 3 when I went big 4, then it was inner Bo yelling at himself saying, listen, dude, obviously 857's out of the play. 817, which I believe was in second place, was there. Don't shoot 170 with 598 after 2. So that was a little self-kick in the butt right there. And so I obviously got refocused. But I tell everybody, and I honestly believe that the second frame of game 3 was actually a really good shot. The problem was my teammates failed me. So we had the extra 3 shots in the 10th frame on the left lane. We start the first frame on the left lane. I go to the right lane. There had been a transition, but the other 3 guys on my pair were so nervous for me, they forgot to talk to me and say, hey, this lane was starting to break down a little bit, because they saw Matt in the camera and everybody just bombarding and everything. And you could see it in the video if you go to YouTube for my last game.
We're about to.
Yeah. And so I don't really blame them, but I kind of do. They got big shoulders. They can handle it. So I felt like I made a great shot and it reacted. I made a move 2 and 1 on that lane and didn't miss again. So, yeah.
Before we take a look at that, we'll go back to the first 299. And of course, as you said, I was there doing my thing, getting the settee as ninja-like as possible to not be in the way, but still capture that moment. And it's tough when that final shot, especially when it's a bad shot, and 295, 296, and you kind of have to slink away. But as you said, a good shot. 7-pin just didn't want to cooperate. But being the talker, the jokester that you are, I mean, what can you do at that point? But maybe just chuckle a little bit out of some frustration, but still, I mean, front 11 at the OC, big deal. And I think in that exchange, I dared you. I said, "Bo, I dare you to do that again." And I didn't necessarily mean the 299 with the 7-pin, but you took me literally, and you did exactly that, the exact same thing. And I was there again, and then I was a little bit more, I guess, clenched at that moment with 598 after 2, seeing something phenomenal unfolding. But then game 3 started, as you said, start with a strike, and then a big 4. So at that point, you pretty much need them all to get there. Again, 857, an immensely intimidating number.
Still wasn't thinking about 857. Not at all. I was thinking about don't shoot 180. That's all I was thinking about.
Well, I would say the other 299 bowlers and 800 fans who had gathered, we were all thinking about 857 and thinking, what are we gonna do, and how are we gonna bring all of this to the world? And of course, it's a 10 bagger away. That's a ton of strikes at the OC, and then you started to reel them off, and of course, we know what happened. You got there, 862 with the number. So after the big four. Got all the way to the 10th frame, the fill ball there. And we do have a highlight video and an interview to share from that day. Let's take a look.
If we can get technology to, and here we go in 3, 2.
And remember too, Bo, this was the first year, the introduction of video at the Open Championships.
For Bo Goergen. He missed a PBA exemption by 1 spot in his native Michigan, finishing 9th when 8 got their tour ticket punched. But he decided to use that experience to his benefit.
It was definitely a disappointment. The tour trial is missing by 1 spot, but history has shown that somebody defers for whatever reason. So there's still a good chance I might get out there. But I knew, hey, I just got done bowling the RPC, finished 9th. Tour trials, finished 9th. My game was a little sharp, so, I knew, hey, I was throwing the ball good.
Good is an understatement. Bo came to the Cashman Center in Las Vegas and threw 299, 299 in the first 2 games of his singles series, and he knew the record was in sight.
If you're a bowler, everybody that's a bowler out there in nervous situations, yeah, we can sit there and start trying to figure out what our score is and counting, and guess what? You don't make good shots, so... For me, it's joking with the guys and loosening up, and the guys that were back there were helping me out and keeping me calm, and that's what helped.
A 264 in his 3rd game pushed him over the top. An 862 series that's not only good enough for first place, but a new Open Championships all-time record.
I got into a groove. Ball was coming off the hand clean. Read the lanes properly, but in anybody's wildest dreams to sit there and shoot back-to-back 299s at the national tournament. Unbelievable. This is my 31st year, and I've been trying to get an eagle since...
Holy moly. Bo, how does it feel looking back at that moment, seeing the pins fall, seeing the embrace? What are you feeling? What are you thinking?
It's still surreal. I mean, as I explained earlier, it felt like an out-of-body experience watching myself bowl. I think everyone that's a bowler has experienced their ultimate set, whether it be perfect game, 800. Some of our fellow bowlers have shot 900s. And just that experience it can be so surreal. But like I said, every day since that day, I've been trying to find that bubble to execute as cleanly and as well as I did for those 3 games, actually 5 games. I put those last 2 games in doubles into that category. It was amazing, and it's great to see that. And that hug with Daniel at the end, I still feel it today. It was a big old bear hug. So.
All right, now before we talk about 2010 and getting to share that feeling with your teammates, going back to 09 again, of course, when Ron Vokes left the venue with 857 and 23-21, a lot of people thought there's no way that number is getting beat, and then it did. So you guys bowled in early June and then had to wait almost till the end of July. Did you walk out of that building knowing that you were going to win? 862 is the number, or did you expect or potential for anybody to walk in on any day and shoot 863 and then take it all the way?
Well, there was never a time until you called me to tell me that I won that I felt comfortable. And people are like, come on, nobody's going to shoot 862. Come on, And it's like, well, think about it, fellas. Some guy got 857. Do you think if 857 could beat, so can 862? So that's how my thought process was for the 2 months remaining in the tournament. And I think you checked in on me a time or two, and same thing. I kept telling you, how can I feel comfortable? 857 was leading, and so that story in itself is amazing. So.
Well, now it does get just a little bit better. Of course, you got there, you waited it out. We had the online scoreboards and the webcams, and so you had a chance to follow along. We touched base a little bit along the way, and then the tournament came to a close. It was phone call day. A lot of guys are there watching every last minute of the scoring, however they can. Some are on site. Did you know that was the day? Today's the day the tournament ends, and it's going to be official if nobody on this squad does it.
I think that particular day, I was I was pulling my hair out, waiting for the last day. That the last couple of days, I was like, you know what, this is ridiculous. Just go do what you normally do and stop scoreboard watching, if you will. So I think that last day, I was like, if it makes it, I'll get a call. And when did you call me?
We're in Vegas, so we're a few hours behind you, of course. And the way I remember it, we always call and we'll cycle through the champions, and if we don't get an answer, we'll call back. We won't leave a message the first time. And when we did get a hold of you, you were in the shower, and because it was us, and it wasn't a joke, it was a big deal. You were retrieved from the shower, so luckily it wasn't a video call back in 2009. But you hopped out of the shower to get the good news. Besides being clean and refreshed at that moment, how did it feel to know that you were a titleist at the Open Championships?
It meant everything. I had spent the first 30 years of my OC Championships career wanting to win a title, and I got the call to finally be called a champion. So it was an amazing phone call.
Now you've got that eagle above your left shoulder there at home right now, and I noticed earlier a couple of Bullards Journal trophies behind you as well, and then of course the big eagle from 2010. But you enjoy the experience so much. Let's roll from the phone call to receiving the eagle to some of the attention that came after. Of course, you bowled the highest score ever at an event that started in 1901. And you're now a part of history. Your name's going on the record banner as well as the champion banner. But a lot happens between that phone call and coming back to the Open Championships. So talk about some of the excitement and things that happened before it was even time to get ready for 2010.
Well, Facebook had just really been coming around. I don't even know if I was on Facebook. And then I think I got on, and the stuff that was on Facebook was amazing. Obviously, there was a video as well. So my wife at the time did a nice collage of that video that you'll see on Facebook, or YouTube for Game 3. Spliced it up and took out the other frame so it could be a little quicker. But I think because of social media at that time, the accolades were probably much stronger than when John Janowitz set the record at 858, just because of social media. That, and maybe the fact that I wasn't as well known as John Janowitz nationally. You know, I've had successes regionally, but being a part-timer, I didn't bowl as much nationally or internationally like someone like John Janowitz. So, and then those who did know me, I think some of it might have been the fact that rarely did you see me succeed left of the third arrow. And you'll notice I'm playing 25 in that last game. I got tired of not competing in these events that I was bowling in when the pattern got deep. And so I made a change earlier in that year with my finger pitches and my thumb pitch, and allowed me to get around the side of the ball a little bit more. I've been known to be up the back, and I had success in the PTQs in 2006, 2007, playing, between first and second arrow primarily to get started. But I was hanging on, it seemed like, when the pattern started moving left. So that was frustrating for me. So I learned how to get a little bit more around the side of the ball. And so when you were able to see that, people were like, wow, they didn't think I had it within me to do that, playing that deep, let alone put that kind of score up there. So social media had a lot to do with it, more than anything.
We do have a comment from social media from Craig Elliott. He wants to know, was that the last time you got left of the big dot?
Well, I don't know how well you guys know Craig Elliott, but it's going to cost him $1 for that comment, and that's an inside joke for his taunting. Craig grew up at our center, by the way, in Sanford, Michigan. He currently lives down in San Antonio. But yeah, Craig, enough, buddy. Love you.
So you did mention, of course, we're in the onset there of Facebook and the digital world and YouTube. And had that been 10 years sooner, it would have been me out there with a big clunky camera and a VHS tape that would be a souvenir in our archives at this point. But your performance lives on YouTube. And then you enjoyed the whole experience so much that you came back the next year. And again, being that was the introduction of live streaming at the Open Championships. So you guys, of course, made the schedule as the defending singles champion, but you enjoyed it all. The whole thing, start to finish, the wait, the phone call, the eagle, the whole deal, so much that you wanted to share it with your teammates. And you made a run, and you made it back-to-back in 2010. Talk about the things you learned and took forward and were able to share with your team to help make that move at the National Bowling Stadium the year later.
Well, as you've noticed, the couple of years prior to that, as we started building some better players within our group, best story that I give on this is that in 2009, our team finished third in team all events. So I knew we had a strong enough team and companion team to help make this happen. It can't happen without a good companion team. And the other thing a lot of people don't realize is that I lost 2 bowlers off the 2009 team for the 2010 team. So John Nolan won the Masters, and he became ineligible on our team based on the number of PBA players. And Jeff Ostring was a one-off anyway. His father had knee surgery that year, so we picked him up for the 1 year. But we didn't replace them with any slouches. We picked up Derwin Petrie and J.R. Raymond. And J.R. bowled at my center. Derwin was living in Louisiana at the time. So obviously the challenge of getting practice in with Derwin. But the other 9 guys, most of them were from the region, and we got a lot of practice in. And at that time, we were able to put the pattern in the machine. And I do remember in those practice sessions, I just kept emphasizing, guys, we can do this as a team. I want you to experience this. It's either team event or team all events. And so I was actually rooting for them to work hard, and they did. And so we had success 2010.
Now, we do have a little bit of, not a highlight video, but some of the live stream we're going to play behind our conversation here as we talk about 2010. But for a real quick second, I want everyone to listen to a young Matt Cannizzaro on the live stream right here as I bring it up.
Years before that at Sag Valley, J.R. Raymond starts today with 5 strikes in a row. So things are looking good for these guys. Let's go back to the axe.
A young Matt Cannizzaro right there.
The one camera, one microphone live stream of 2010.
This is a look at, I believe, the first game of doubles for you guys. As you saw the scoreboard about midway through, you said that the year before with singles, because you knew how big the number was, you weren't looking at scores. What are they going to do? Not put the X in the right spot. At any point during this run in doubles and singles in 2010, were you guys watching the score, or were you just letting the pins accumulate and you were going to see where you were at the end?
I probably watched a lot more than 2010, yes, because I wanted it so bad for my teammates. So we did have an idea after a great team event. We had 33-55. We ended up finishing in 7th that year in team event. And so we had an idea that we could get, seeing how close we came the year before and knowing you have to get off to a good start. Yeah, the team all events was definitely was something that we really paid attention to and focused on for where we're talking right here.
Mm-hmm. Now, 2010, a different venue, of course, being at the stadium, same state, different city, different venue, different oil pattern. How much different did you attack the lanes in 2010 compared to 2009, or were you kind of in the same area of the lane with some similar equipment?
I'm going to say no, I wasn't in the same part of the lane with similar equipment. To be honest with you, I felt like I had different equipment in my hand.
Mhm.
But as you can see there was great communication going on. So we just did a good job with that, paying attention. I learned a little bit before that never be focused on using just one ball. Just be open to what the lanes tell you to do. And of course, Daniel, JR's got a really strong bowling mind. Daniel as well.
Mhm.
They both bowled at SVSU. Derwin, past Team USA guy.
Mhm.
So we had a lot of knowledge on the lanes, and it was key to just be communicated each and every frame. So and watch the lanes. I mean, the lanes at the USBC championships, I can tell you for 41 years, they move very quickly, like every 4 frames, whether you wanted to or not. You better be prepared to move, even throwing strikes like that. That shot there came in a little high, almost left the 4-pin.
They're
There's a good
moving.
chance I made a little bit move right off of that. And so,
Yeah, when we talked to Janowitz about his 858, he said every shot during that set he was moving. And you touched on this a little bit earlier about team event and kind of what the strategy about, okay, maybe you sacrifice a little bit of your brackets or your personal stuff for the greater good of the team, and you talk to one another. As far as doubles and singles, I see you guys communicating a lot. Was it after every shot, or was it every couple shots? How often did you all talk?
we basically talked after every shot, and it was, what kind of conversation. If a great shot like Derwin right there, obviously no conversation really needed to go. But if there was a trip 4 or a late 10-pin or something, everybody was talking. Well, what did you throw it good? You had to be honest that the execution was there and you threw it good before any decisions were going to be made. So we did a lot of striking there. By the way, something a lot of people don't realize, Dan and I were doubles partners the year before.
Mm-hmm.
He it was either him or one of us got our card. I think it was him. And so we were ineligible this year. And so Derwin was my partner and JR was Dan's partner. I should have another eagle if we were allowed to bowl, because he had 774 and I had 750 in doubles for 15-24. That would have won that year.
And JR, I went back and I was, watching this. That was a shot in the 8th from JR on the left lane. He was on front 7 at that point. He ended up shooting 245 that game and then went 180, 180. So he held up his side of the bargain game 1 with Dan, but wasn't able to finish it off 2 and 3. Were there any? No, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say that the 5th member of the team, Dale Hoffmeister, if I remember, I was trying to get my ears all situated, but Dale, I believe, a left-hander who was not bowling on that pair of lanes. And whether it was you guys finished first and then kind of waited on him to get that final number, he finished with 776 in singles. So a terrific performance there to get it done with a great big number too. But, we don't want to leave him out at all.
Not at all. In fact, he was very instrumental. And a great story there is we needed Dan McClellan's help on the pair to our right where Hoffy was, or I can't remember exactly where he was, but there were some Canadian folks on his pair, and they were throwing plastic because the lanes hooked so much. Dan had to go over there and ask his friends from Canada that he knew to throw something different so that Dale can get lined up, because he had 160 game 1 in doubles.
Uh-huh.
And he shot 280 over his next 5 games to get us to that title. And if it wasn't for Dan, those guys might have stayed in the part of the lane that was messing with Dale. So that was huge that Danny was able to help us out with that with his friends from Canada.
See, and that's one of those stories that's behind the scenes that people wouldn't know. All they would see is your name on the banner, the eagle, the numbers, the names, but they wouldn't know that story. And hearing that just makes this accomplishment so much more fantastic, that if it wasn't for that, he might have just popped off, 5 more games under 200, and you guys would have been hundreds of pins behind the number instead of taking the lead.
Yep.
Was it putting him over there, putting the lefty over there, was that a strategical thing?
No, this was back in the day where we only had 4 on a pair. And it may have been a strategical thing in regards to we kept trying to have at least one more lefty on our companion team. And I don't recall who his doubles partner was that year, but I'm sure it was another lefty. And there was one or two other lefties that was on his pair, if I remember correctly. Again, I'm old and I'm forgetful, but I do know that the one or two bowlers on the pair of lanes were from Canada, and they weren't playing the lanes the way that we wanted to help Dale out with either equipment or alignment. And so Dan helped us out by communicating that to them, and they agreed that they would help us out and at least give Dale a chance. And basically, he just took urethane and bounced off of that and just went crazy.
Now, you guys ultimately did get it done, took the lead, held on for the win. The wait for this title, was it more nerve-wracking because you had teammates that were attached to you with this one?
Absolutely. Way more nerve-wracking. I wanted it so bad for those guys. They got to watch me come out of the paddock or the back of the machines with the introduction. My face is on every single screen. They got music playing as I'm coming out as the previous year's champion. And I said, man, I just want you guys to experience that same thing. So we were fortunate enough to do that. And then the next year to have all 5 of us come out, I couldn't be more proud to watch the smiles on their faces as they got to experience what I got to experience the year before.
Now, as the teams, some of the big names showed up after you guys got done, may or may not have been on live stream. Were you watching them religiously? Were you following scores? How were you tracking everything?
I'm a big watcher. I watch a lot. I just enjoy it, and it's not as if I can see what exact ball is going down the lane because of the view, but I can tell a little bit about what part of the lane that they're playing. Just to learn and educate myself and share that information as well, but also just to watch some friends bowl and just see how they're doing and so forth. So I started doing that, as early as you guys started doing it, and I wish we still had it. And I'm fighting for it, people. I'm fighting for it.
So how was that phone call when you found out you guys held on and won officially? Different from 2009, and did you guys celebrate, and how did you celebrate if you did?
For me personally, it was even more gratifying. Like I said, I wanted it for them guys. I was fortunate enough to already experience it, but I wanted them to experience what I had. So that phone call was even more rewarding than the first one. So, and as far as celebrating, we might have celebrated a little bit.
So now a decade later, looking back, you're on almost 60 years old, but you now have the opportunity to share these memories and this experience with your son. And as we get close to wrapping up here, now that he's almost at Open Championships age and ready to get out there and sees the Eagles and knows the prestige a little bit, just talk about how special it would be just to let alone share the lanes with him. These guys, of course, are like family, your teammates, but the opportunity to be able to share the lanes and the experience and have him be part of your introduction every year, of course, for your performances.
Can't wait for that day to happen. That'll be probably the highlight of my bowling career, is to be able to bowl at the national championships with my son. We had an opportunity to bowl an adult youth tournament for the MJMA, big, huge organization in Michigan. And his father let him down. We finished second, made a bad shot. He averaged 241 for 15 games, just to give you an idea how he was rolling. But that was the most enjoyable day I had bowling. And so I cannot wait for him to join me on the lanes at the Open Championships.
All right, well, there you have your champion banner from the 2009 event. That would have been hanging over the lanes in Reno in 2010. And most people don't realize how big those are, about 20 feet tall, hanging from the rafters, just like you'd see at a basketball arena or college arena. And fortunate that you guys have a bowling center that you're able to hang these up. But how cool is it just to walk in every time you bowl league or anytime you're in the venue to see that and just remember such good times?
Absolutely. Again, I'm very proud of the accomplishments as a bowler. As a proprietor, we represented our bowling center and our pro shop, as you see, as the team name. So, again, very just proud of the accomplishments, and to have it sitting there as a reminder is pretty cool.
Now, this would be probably about the time you guys would be getting ready to head to the Open Championships, give or take, for 2020. Of course, we're now delayed until September 12th, and an opportunity to see Reno in a different time of year, but also potentially a big time, a busy time in the year for proprietors and for all the centers that you work with. Are you going to be able to join us in Reno for the 10-year anniversary of that Team All Events title?
Absolutely. I've got 10 teams in my group coming out October 6th and 7th. We'll be invading the lanes.
Well, we certainly appreciate all your hard work as a captain. Look forward to seeing the group. And again, you're still stacked with some talented players, and that certainly has helped you achieve the greatness behind you as well. The Bullards Journal Trophies, the side event that now features the doubles and singles oil pounder from the Open Championships, an opportunity for some additional prize money and some pretty neat trophies as well. So we look forward to seeing you come our way. And as we get ready to say goodbye today and life starts to return to normal, you're headed off to bowl this weekend, and you've been getting some practice in. Is there anything else you're particularly looking forward to doing once you can be out and about and just enjoying life again?
Right now, my whole focus is getting our 165 member centers open and running the way that they'd like to. So I want normalcy back. And so I've been sequestering myself in my own home. I haven't been to my office in 2.5 months down in the Detroit area. Just want to get back to normal routine. And so that's what I look forward to the most, is going back into the bowling center. I can't wait to hug my friends, shake their hands. I know that it's frowned upon right now, but that's what I look forward to. I'm a hugger. I like to shake everybody's hands when I do see them. So that's what I look forward to. I know it'll be a while yet. This weekend will be fist pumps or elbows or what have you. So I'm going to respect everybody's feelings, what their thoughts are. It's time to get on with our lives.
All right. Now, Daniel, outside of figuring out during the broadcast by MapQuest how long it would take you to get to that event to bowl alongside Bill this week, do you have any final thoughts for our 2-time Eagle winner?
I was actually planning on being there before our local tournament was announced. So it saves me a lot of gas money and potentially a hotel night. So appreciate Jason doing what he's doing for us. Just a couple of comments from all of our viewers. Gerald Johnson, Bo, you're amazing, my man. Scott Schauberg says he's going to call dibs on Isaac when he and his 2 boys are old enough and ready for the OC. Michael Zawicki, afternoon. Glad you and yours are safe. Leonard Zahn apparently doesn't know that Matt is a part-time bowler because he says the Canizaro can be your lefty if you need one. Tyler Ladwig, wish we were on the lanes tomorrow. Great interview. And then the one and only Warren Crawford. Do a great job. Great shows. Thanks, everybody. So to all of our viewers on Bowl TV, on YouTube, on Facebook, big thank you to you all and big thank you to Bo. You know, one of the things I've said before, and I'll say it again, is these interviews give me an opportunity to meet people and talk to them virtually that I've never met before and haven't spoken to before, and find out the stories like the Dale Hoffmeister story about going over to the other pair and having Dan tell the Canadians, hey, quit doing that. You know, stuff you wouldn't know, and that's the kind of stuff that I love about this sport. So I take every opportunity I can to learn stuff like this.
All right. Definitely some great thoughts there, Daniel. Thank you both. Thank you for your insight today as well and giving us a look inside the community there in the Midland Sanford area. Certainly our thoughts go out to all the folks and hope things dry out quickly and we can get back to normal, as you said, just in general. And of course, after COVID-19 has passed. And for everybody who tuned in today, thank you very much for being here for another episode of Inside the OC. We really do appreciate it. We'll be back on Tuesday, every Tuesday and Thursday here on Bowl TV, 2 p.m. Eastern, and the PWBA podcast on Mondays and Wednesdays, the Sport of Bowling show on Fridays, and Daniel Emil Williams Jr. and Curtis Von Kruger all busy with additional shows on Bowl TV as well. So check that out. Become a subscriber. You can see all of that great content. And then we're going to figure out which group will let us in on that mobile home trip to the Open Championships, East Coast to Reno or so. That would be a good time, certainly. Bo, before we go, any final thoughts?
I just want to say thank you for what you guys are doing. It's been wonderful watching all these interviews each week. You guys are doing a fabulous job. Hats off to Chad Murphy and John Mark and Mike Flanagan for their podcast every Friday. Everybody in the bowling industry keeping our top of mind awareness for our sport, our wonderful sport we all love, from Rob Pirashad to JR's doing some videos. So everybody in the sport of bowling that's doing these live videos, I appreciate it. So thank you. Great job, guys.
All right. Well, thank you for the kind words and for all of your hard work as well, folks. We appreciate everybody tuning in today. We'll definitely look forward to seeing you again soon. If you missed any of today's show, you can find that in the Bowl TV archives. Remember to find us on social media as well. If you have any thoughts, questions, or comments, we're certainly glad to address those for you. And with that, again, special thanks to Daniel Ferris and Bo Goergen for today's episode. Looking forward to going back and watching it once again for all of the great insight. Folks, that is it for today. That is the news for now. We'll see you on the lanes.